Well, should NATO be banned, put an end to, silenced, shut down for good? It runs around under the guise that it's a defensive organization, but it's laughable. Anyone with a brain knows it's anything but defensive. Just look at Ukraine, of course, which is now being used as a proxy to expand NATO's territory right to Russia's doorstep, a promise they broke. Nick Brana is one of the organizers of the Rage Against the War Machine rally in D.C. Over the past couple of weeks, he's been doing amazing work, really revitalizing an anti-war movement that has been dead in the United States. And he has a new mission to say no to NATO. And Nick joins us here on the show. Nick, welcome back to the show. And congratulations, by the way, on the huge success of the Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, D.C. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Clayton.
So tell us, before we get into the NATO side of this, which I'm particularly interested in, I want to hear, first of all, what has been the response now that we've had this revitalization of this anti-war movement in the United States? Were you surprised by the mainstream media's response to your rally in D.C.? And, are you energized going forward to see maybe a doubling of these events as we move forward?
Well, it was huge. The rally was huge. We had about 3,000 people who came out and joined us at the Lincoln Memorial, right next to the reflecting pool. We had an amazing group of speakers, former presidential candidates and members of Congress, Dennis Kucinich, Tulsi Gabbard, Ron Paul, other incredible people like Jimmy Dore, just an amazing lineup. And one of the things that I'm most proud about is that it really showed that we can break out of those political silos. We don't have to accept the labels and, remain segmented and afraid of each other as Americans, but rather we can come together. The range there were all from, libertarians to socialists and communists, just a complete political range of people there who were united by one thing, the fact that they opposed this war and they do not want a nuclear war. Our march stretched several blocks to the White House, from the Lincoln Memorial to the White House. We had another huge rally when we got to the White House, delivered the message there. And of course, you asked about the mainstream media. I think the mainstream media's reaction was predictable, but also very telling. The fact that we were attacked not once, but twice on MSNBC by Rachel Maddow and Joy Ann Reid in ridiculous segments that they had really reveals how brittle and fragile and their hold on power is, and how afraid they are of us. We're just getting started. We have plans to continue. This is just the beginning, and yet already they felt the need to attack and ridicule us. As the saying goes, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Well, now they're fighting us. And so that's a good thing. Also, the fact that Biden immediately the next day went to Ukraine and chose that day, knowing that we had this rally planned on that day, that I think is also very telling and very significant. This was the largest peace rally, certainly since the war has escalated in this past year, and probably since the Iraq war protests, since 2007. So it's very significant. It's had a big impact. And then, of course, there was the hilarious fact that MSNBC undermined its own kind of ridiculous caricature of the rally by having a reporter on the ground who interviewed people, as you and Dan covered yesterday, who revealed that, in fact, the rally had nothing to do with this kind of stereotype that they were trying to create of everybody there being Putin puppets or being, some crazy fringe like wingnut. These are people from across the political spectrum, just Americans who want peace, who are tired of their hard-earned tax dollars going to killing people abroad, $100 billion, who are tired of giving up their freedoms for war, who are tired of being the victims of empire themselves and subjecting the whole rest of the world to that. So it was a huge success. I'm very much looking forward to what we have in store next. We've got a lot of plans.
So that's what I want to get to. I'm excited about it. And you're right. I mean, the thousands of people that came, it's not like they were living in Washington, D.C. They came from Ohio. They came from California. They came from all over the country in support of this rally, which is amazing and just speaks to the reach and how many, thousands more maybe really wanted to go that couldn't come, but maybe donated money to the cause, which is also equally important. So this next mission, NATO, this No to NATO rally, which is happening this Saturday in London. George Galloway, Claire Daly, among others, will be there speaking. So tell us about the No to NATO. What was the start of this, the gestation of this project? Because this one I am very interested in.
That's right. This is huge. And all credit, this is our partner rally in London. All credit to former members of parliament in the UK, George Galloway, Chris Williamson, with the Workers' Party and the Socialist Party in the UK, and also current and sitting members of the European Parliament, MEPs Claire Daly and Mick Wallace, who are just incredible heroes of peace, will be there. Low Key, many other incredible people. Rage Against the War Machine speakers, Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil, will be there. And so this is going to be another big gathering, and they're focusing on abolishing NATO, as one of our demands was as well. And so they'll be rallying in London. They actually haven't even revealed the location yet, despite the fact that the event is this Saturday, on the 25th of February, because they scheduled 2 different venues before this. And then there was a smear and hate campaign against them that targeted the venues, that led the venue to cancel on them twice.
Wow.
And so they're not even releasing the name of the venue until basically immediately before the event. So that's the degree to which these kind of pro-NATO, pro-war forces don't even want anybody who is opposed to this war to express that.
It's amazing. Do you happen to have any idea who's behind this smear campaign, these attacks? I mean, we've seen certainly the deep state has, militarized social media accounts before, weaponized these accounts to go after and to try to push these messages out to try to stop these sort of anti-Ukraine war movements and so forth. So do you have any idea this time who's behind these attacks?
Well, it seems to be these same kind of NATO forces, which are, of course, just a complete AstroTurf project of the intelligence agencies, that are really waging essentially these harassment campaigns against the venues in order to get them canceled. And besides that, I'm not sure who else may be responsible, but I think it's pretty clear. I think there was a similar campaign waged against us, actually, in order to try to kind of break up our coalition in the United States, going after particular speakers, trying to smear them, trying to create dissension within the coalition that we were bringing together, which, of course, spanned from left to right. I think it was very deliberate. I spoke to others, including former member of Congress, Dennis Kucinich. He agreed. He said this has intelligence hands on it. And so I think that there absolutely is a campaign that goes to intelligence, to our government, to try to smear and break up this new kind of chapter and revival of the anti-war movement, both in the United States and in the UK.
So why should we say no to NATO? Why should NATO be ended?
NATO is a warmongering tool of the United States, essentially. It is the weapon that has been used against Russia. There were some kind of pro-Ukraine war figures who showed up at the rally, and when I spoke with them at the rally on Sunday, ours, Rage Against the War Machine, and they were saying, Russia has this imperial project and these imperial aims, and they want to reconstitute the Soviet Union. That's ridiculous. There is no evidence of that. What I told them is, look at a map. NATO is the one that has expanded right up to Russia's border over the last 30 years. Russia's border hasn't changed since the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union broke up Russia contracted. And then NATO went right up to its border, added, almost doubled in size, grew to about 30 different members. So its whole purpose is to essentially wage war against Russia. That's been revealed now by Angela Merkel, who told us that the Minsk II agreement was essentially just a stall tactic to wage war against Russia, to rearm Ukraine. The aim of the United States has always been, and NATO by extension, has always been to balkanize Russia, to break it up into smaller countries, and to depose Putin. And they're very open about that now. Our politicians here in Washington, they're talking about how they want to get Putin out of power. And this is a war against Putin. That is ridiculous. NATO should have dissolved when the Warsaw Pact dissolved at the end of the Cold War. That should have been the end of it. Instead, it has been a tool of American hegemony and empire, used to wage war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, to overthrow the government of Libya and turn it into a complete failed state with open slave markets, to destroy Syria and occupy a third of that country, the portion with the oil, so we can continue stealing their resources. So that's why NATO needs to be abolished. It is completely outside of the paradigm of any kind of international law, completely outside of the paradigm of the Security Council of the United Nations. It needs to be abolished. There are billions, tens of billions of dollars that essentially it siphons from countries across Europe, the United States, Canada, to wage war against Russia. It's militarizing all of the West now, all of the economies of the West, and of course, contributing to the militarization of even other economies outside the West, like Japan. All of this is an enormous waste of resources that should be going towards taking care of people in our own countries instead of waging war against others. We have enough problems in the United States: massive homelessness, exploding homelessness, lack of health care, lack of education, lack of ability to take care of oneself here in this country. Why are we spending $100 billion waging war against Ukraine and billions more financing NATO?
It's the ultimate question, right? Because it keeps the military industrial complex burning and churning as an excuse to funnel more weapons, more money into this endless furnace, this cauldron of money burning machine that enriches the military industrial complex and takes the lives of countless thousands, millions of people in their wars. Well said. Well said. And on this show, we are absolutely big proponents of what you're talking about. So where can people, if they happen to be in London, of course, we don't have an exact location, we just know that it's London. Where can people find out more information about this No to NATO rally? How can people donate and help out and maybe go see George and Claire and the rest of the amazing speakers that are lined up?
Absolutely. I very much encourage everybody to go. In fact, just before we got on, I booked a ticket from Virginia over to London because I consider this to be such an important event. So I'm going myself. People from across, I know the United Kingdom, are going to be going. If you can make your way there, please do. London on the 25th, this Saturday. And so you can book your ticket and find the event simply by searching for Eventbrite and No to NATO. And you can also find it, of course, on Twitter. You can find the No to NATO Twitter. It's just called No to NATO, No to War.
Wonderful. And we'll link that up all in the description below. We look forward to covering it. We look forward to seeing what the reaction is in the UK with one of the biggest warmongering governments in the world actively participating in the expansion of NATO in the UK. So, Nick, Brana, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And thank you for joining us here on Redacted. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Clayton.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.